Hello?
Mr. Mayor, I'm ready when you are.
7 o'clock. I'll call a special meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Eversoff.
Here.
Agni.
Present.
Nemitz.
Here.
Wrestler.
Here.
Hoop.
Here.
Polkamp.
Here.
Martins.
Here.
Riddle.
Here. You join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any presentations, proclamations, or nothing? Public input?
Nothing was received.
Okay. Comments or announcements from any of the aldermen or department heads? No? No? Consent agenda is unfinished business. Ordinance number 3568, establishing the budget for the city of Columbia, Illinois for the fiscal year of said city commencing May 1st, 2021 and ending April 30th, 2022. Doug?
I would be happy to answer any questions that any of the aldermen have at this time regarding the proposed budget.
Alderman Nemitz?
On the, I know that we have talked about the software and our investments and everything, and I was looking at 2020, what was projected and what we spent, and the same for 2021, and then what's projected for 22. I think we never really knew the end amount, where is it all going, and how long will it be in effect in comparison to the last software that we had? This is a huge investment.
We're still in the initial implementation of the software. Our director of IT, James Mitchell, he has been kind of running point on that with regards to the implementation. James, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is the last This fiscal year represents the last large investment, but then it's the ongoing maintenance cost thereafter. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And what is the ongoing maintenance?
If you give me just one moment, I'd be happy to pull up that agreement and we can take a look at that.
Was our expenditure the first step of it, or last year was the first step of it?
Last year,
Clear, and I couldn't find the information of when I was looking for it over the.
there was a portion of that that was budgeted. We did incur, unfortunately, some overage costs with regards to the implementation. We had to reschedule one of the meetings with Tyler Technology due to some staff issues at the time. That created an additional, I believe, $8,500 cost that the city incurred for that rescheduling. It was a situation where we were optimistic that we would be able to work with Tyler to reschedule that. They would be able to find work for their techs that were obligated to the city. Unfortunately, they weren't able to fully rebook that week, so we did incur a penalty. But if you give me just one moment, I'm still continuing to look for that original agreement here.
Just if we had a meeting on it specifically just for that, and we went into detail, I could not find those on it. And I could not find the date if we talked about it. Do you all remember specifics on it?
It was part of the budgeting process last year that we had reviewed that in detail.
And we knew of these amounts and the ones that were budgeted for 2022, these were.
Correct. The one-time fees upon the proposal for the services.
And then our maintenance each year.
The one-time fees were proposed to be $153,940, and we were able to get them to spread that over the course, I believe, of 2 years. James, correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then the ongoing or recurring fees are $35,830 per year.
Was everyone else more clear on this than I was?
Mary Ellen, I believe that was discussed with the county manager at the time. They were looking for help for swapping out different software because the current one was incompatible.
Right,
And
and
I
I
think
know
would
that
be
was clear, yes,
Unable to be upgraded, so
right.
they were looking, and I think with Linda involved to a certain extent as she was outgoing. And the choice was made that this would probably be the best software, and none of them were cheap. And so, yeah, it was quite a big expenditure. And I think all that was going on, I want to say June maybe of last year or so, and that's when COVID was shutting everything down. So as far as a in-person upfront discussion with everybody, I'm not sure that you're going to find that maybe in all those, other than there was a briefing that this is the software that's been selected and this was what was budgeted and this is how it's going to be paid for. But yeah, it's not a cheap software, and none of them are. And I think there was a hierarchy. This is you could have a Cadillac, you could drive a Chevy, or you could have, what we did, and we went for the middle ground, which was a little bit less than the upper thing. But there's also the maintenance, where once they get you in there, then you're paying maintenance all the time, and that's the cost of doing business these days. You cannot get around software like they have without having tech support with it.
The 35, 36 amount more or less rings a bell, but the grand total, I guess, was what was, when I saw the 160 and the 140, getting up to the $300,000 level was not what, am I reading it wrong? I was not remembering that as the investment.
During I just pulled up my budget presentation from last year. We had projected $233,000 for that particular initiative last year.
I just didn't remember it going up part of that. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I'm the only one? I have another.
Well, please do.
Okay. The other thing was, just looking back, the past practices, have had more or less and by the way, this projection is great. The 30, 60, 90, did everybody see this that he sent out? Just give an idea of what's coming up for that time. I thought this was great.
Thank you.
This was really helpful, I think, to all of us, not just incoming, but everybody. But what I was wondering is, we have, one would be, am I off? I'm sorry. One would be just in the new hires that we've
start over.
talked about. And what we've done in the past, and, previously being personnel chair and now Alderman Hoop being personnel chair now, we had more or less a template for the process for new hires. And it just seems like this year we've got budgeted for new hires and we really never had that session. We really never had that committee session under personnel that we normally do. And all that amounted to was the department head comes and outlines the position, presents the job description, the pay range, and that goes through the personnel committee. And then after that all gets okayed, then it goes to then the city administrator takes it to the council for approval. And it just seems like we've got these budgeted, which is if the explanation comes later and talking about it more in depth comes later, that's fine. But it seems like in the past years, we would always do that prior to budgeting for that position.
Okay.
And again, because we budget it, doesn't mean we have to spend it. But that's what it seems like. And I've got this, unless this is incorrect, this is our City of Columbia hire process.
Mary Ellen, honestly, I haven't seen that document. I'd be happy to take a look at that,
Well, I wondered
and I
about
can work
it,
through that with the council.
and it's not dated either, which doesn't help. Usually everything in my file is dated, but this document, when it was composed, and I'm guessing it was under our previous city administrator, but it is not dated. But this was just kind of the understanding that I thought that we could do. And I'm still looking at the budget for the master plan. I know is 100,000, and we are going to be hiring a consultant, and then we're going to be hiring a planner. And I'm just not sure how all that's going to be working together unless they're serving multiple purposes for a 40-hour week of, every week. I'm just not clear on it. Maybe everyone else is, but if I'm going to approve something and I'm sitting up here, if I don't understand it, I have to ask questions. So I apologize if you all know the answers and I don't. But if someone stops me and asks me, I have to be able to justify with information. So can you just give me an idea of how you expect things to proceed in the future? Because I know on this 90-day projection, some of those things are mentioned in here. And that's a full-time EMT too.
A full-time paramedic, looking at the possibility of exploring a sixth paramedic. But in
And
the
we didn't really have normally there's always a presentation by the department. It doesn't have to be lengthy, it doesn't have to be long, but we kind of get the bullet points. And where's Alderman Rice? The spreadsheet, where's the spreadsheets he always used to ask for? But we always used to have a little bit more information to go with it rather than just saying, fine, it's been recommended, we're good with it. It's just helpful as filling this spot that we have a little bit more information. So I don't know if that will come before we
I can very
advertise.
quick, and I know, James, is Mr. Donahue online right now?
Yes, he
I'm
is.
online. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Scott, Scott, I'm gonna try to run through the city planner, and we can certainly go into greater detail at this prior to filling that position. But the real concern, I think, that's been voiced from staff is the fact that Mr. Donahue, in his capacity of Director of Community Development, has been bogged down with the subdivision reviews and in various other capacities where there's been time that's been split with boards and commissions, dealing with zoning matters. The expectation that Scott would be working on the zoning code, that Scott would be working on the sign code, the subdivision code, the comprehensive plan. That is really going to be taxing of his time, and it's really kind of detracted from the overall focus that a department director should have with focusing on the big picture, getting out, meeting with the businesses, meeting with prospective business owners. networking with the various entities like the Chamber of Commerce, the Monroe County Economic Development Commission, so on and so forth. The intention of bringing a city planner on board is to take over some of those day-to-day details that may not be the best use of Mr. Dunnicky's time. The city planner is going to be focusing on doing some data compilation for the comprehensive plan in concert with Mr. Dunnicky and the selected consultant. Mr. Dunnicky has projected $100,000 for the attainment, if you will, of a comprehensive plan consultant. If you look at comparable municipalities, I believe you'll find that that is a rather reduced rate simply because of Mr. Dunnicky's background that he brings to the city from his time in the private sector, where he had acted in the capacity as a consultant for many of these plans for other municipalities and other public entities. And it's important to note as well that that $100,000, that is not derived directly from taxpayer funds. That $100,000 is a leftover from that economic development grant program that the city had through that revolving loan that was facilitated back in the early 90s from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. That was that block grant that was distributed to many municipalities, where it gave the cities an opportunity to loan money to businesses at a fixed interest rate of 3%. There were some other strings with regards to environmental impacts, low to moderate income impacts for businesses that would be eligible for that grant. A couple of years back, I believe, not only Columbia, but in my previous municipalities, it wasn't a competitive interest rate anymore. Therefore, you really had the interest in that money dwindle significantly until such time as the state determined that they would go ahead and release those funds to all of the participating municipalities with no strings attached. So that $100,000 for that consultant is a holdover expenditure of that remaining fund.
This is all very helpful. And if you've gone into this detail before,
No, I have not.
I didn't have it, but again, it just helps so much in the understanding, and again, the justification of why are we doing this? And, when some of us started, there weren't even job descriptions, and it took forever to get those in place, and we worked really hard to do that. Very, very much
And Mr. Dunnicky and I, we have worked on a job description for the city planner that I would be happy to send out to the council for your feedback and review, and we can certainly discuss that at a future meeting if there are any kind of tweaks that need to be made to that particular job description. The other positions programmed in the fiscal year 22 budget include filling vacancies within the police department. We're currently down 2 patrolmen. We anticipate losing a third basically any day now to the federal government. And then additionally hiring the 6th paramedic for EMS. That's going to be something I think that I made very clear to Chief Lamprecht, that we would take a close look at the overtime budget and make sure that we would be able to justify that prior to actually filling that position. Finally, as discussed at the budget meeting that we had at the committee of the whole level, we will be hiring an additional telecommunicator, and that is simply because the call volume that we are experiencing continues to grow year over year. And it's Chief Don John's recommendation, as well as Sergeant Dare, that we hire an additional telecommunicator to facilitate that call volume.
And two, what I was wondering for both of you, is it too because of the amount of looking at the overtime, et cetera, too? Is that why Kim, is that why too we're looking at that with your department, is because of the amount of overtime and things? We don't fill all those positions that we'd like to. And again, I'm just looking for some general statements. Doug, what you presented was excellent. I've noted all of it down. I appreciate it. I will file it. Hopefully I'll be able to pull it up when I need it too. But yeah, just a few statements just to clarify would be great. I would appreciate it.
Less and less people are going into EMS. I teach at the college. My morning class started with 12 students. I have 4 left. My afternoon class started with 20. I have 8 of them left. So less and less people are going into EMS. The pay is low. We recently, Doug, helped with the CBA get the pay bumped up, especially since minimum wage is going up. Why go to class, be responsible for somebody's life for, $13 an hour.
Right.
So I had to mandate today. I have to mandate tomorrow. I'm still trying to reach a crew member when I have call-ins. Part-timers are not vested in the department. We have great full-timers and we have really good part-timers. But you know, if they get mandated at their full-time job, they call into me, so then I have to cover that hole. And as it stands now, most of my shifts have 2 full-time medics. I have 1 open shift that is a 48-hour shift. 24 is with Mike Evans, so he's the only medic here. So I have to get part-timers to cover it, 2 trucks. And then Brandon Layton has the other open shift. They have the most seniority, so they have the most vacation and time accrued. When they take off, I have noticed things like response times increase when I have my part-timers here. Those full-time medics, we need to have 1 of them, because I usually only let like 1 person on a shift. If I have 2 full-time medics that day, I only let 1 person take vacation, so we have 1 full-timer here in my absence. So to make sure that things go smoothly, they are vested with the community, and they're kind of the leaders of the shift. So, you know, I spend about 864 hours on mandations a year. These are our open shifts so far this year, January, February, and March. Okay, I have that many open shifts that then I have to scramble to fill, and it makes a hardship on the department, especially if I only have 1 full-timer on that day. But I do have all these statistics and I have all of the paperwork. If you would like me to send it to Doug and he can disperse it to you. In addition, Linda can vouch for this, I have had multiple part-timers exceed their 1,000 hours, which then makes us have to pay IMRF, and we have to offer them insurance. So I'm such a hardship. New Baden is paying part-time medics $19 an hour, and their part-time basics $17. We pay our part-time basics $17.50, and our part-time EMTs, we pay them $13.50. So it's hard. MedStar Abbott, if you're working part-time, they pay $25 an hour. Staunton Ambulance is starting part-time paramedics at $25 an hour. So I'm having a hard time drawing on those part-time people that want to come work for us. We do have, you know, a good community of part-timers, but if they, you know, can work for $17 an hour as an EMT, the racetrack in Fairmont is paying their EMTs $20 an hour to work at the racetrack and stand by during horse racing. So it's hard to get that draw. I mean, I do have a solid bunch of part-timers, but I need that other full-time medic to balance out where I have those holes. So in the month of June, I have both Brandon and Mike taking all of their vacations. So I have all 4 weekends in June that have only part-time people. And I have come in and worked shifts to kind of help out at times, not to exceed my 20%, because I can't do that because I'm salary. But, you know, nobody wants to get mandated. And it's hard to mandate with only 5 full-timers because they already work 48 hours, and I will not mandate them to a 72-hour shift. So then I have to like fill the day shift with 1 part-time full-timer and then the night shift with another, so that I'll work them 60 hours. But I will never mandate them into 3 days in a row staying at our base. Okay, so that is why we need that last full-timer.
And I appreciate it, Chief, very much. That's really just a summation like that for me. It just really creates an understanding, and you definitely need to fill another position. Yes.
And so I can send
Understandable.
you all my data if you need.
Not necessary for me. If anyone else wants it, that's fine. But I just appreciate this. I can summarize this for someone else when they ask me. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Do anybody else have any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
The additional dispatcher is much more straightforward. It's nothing with overtime.
Sure.
It's just, as he said, you know, just the call volume we have.
Okay.
I could tell you different stories about times when we have one dispatcher working and they're just unable to keep up with the 911 calls, the other calls for service, people at the window. So some of the service lacks because they're not available. Monroe County, although they dispatch for Waterloo as well, they always have 2 dispatchers working at all times. With hiring one more, this would put us at every day of the week, certain days of the week, half of the week, we have 1 dispatcher. Dispatchers work 6 a.m., 6 p.m., 6 p.m., 6 a.m. But now half the time we can have a dispatcher from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the busiest times. With this one additional dispatcher, it'll give us every day of the week, barring vacations and stuff in their CBA, we'll have that dispatcher, 2 of them there from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So it just really helps. I mean, ideally to get 2 dispatchers on at all times, we would have to hire 3, but I think just hiring this one will really help us out to at least get every day of the week, we'll have 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. covered with 2 dispatchers. So that's our main thing. Josh Bayer did put together a thing for the insurance. It does help lower the rate because as a city this big, we're supposed to have X number of dispatchers per population. So we needed to get closer to that too to help with insurance. And I can forward you guys that as well that Sergeant Bayer put together. So
Thank you very
Uh-huh.
much. I appreciate
Thank
it
you.
very much. Thank you.
Any other questions? No one? Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
I'll make the motion.
Alderman Nemitz, second. Alderman Hoop. Roll call.
Eversol,
Yes.
Agni. Nemitz,
Yes.
Wrestler. Hoop.
Yes.
Fullcamp.
Yes.
Martins. Riddle.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Alderman Nemitz, for the questions. Is there any new business?
No, sir.
Any need for executive session?
No, sir.
Any announcements? Is there a motion to adjourn? Alderman Wrestler, second Alderman Martins. Roll call?
Eversol,
Yes.
Agni. Nemitz.
Yes.
Wrestler.
Yes.
Hoop.
Yes.
Fullcamp.
Yes.
Martins. Riddle.
Thank you.